Hey everyone, Corey Casey here with Casey Woodcraft. Today I'm going to do a review of the Jet JWP-208HH, which is Jet's 20-inch helical head planer. I just bought this about a week ago and wanted to give a review of the ordering process, the setup, and my initial impressions of the machine. So to start off, I ordered this machine from a company called Elite Metal Tools. It's a third-party reseller of Jet products, similar to like a Woodcraft or a Rockler. It's actually shipped to you directly from Jet. So it's not going to be much of a different process if you order it from a different company. So the machine came crated up on a pallet. This is the top of the crate. It's just kind of some plywood nailed together. Here's the pallet that the machine was sitting on. Single-handed, it was a little hard to get the top off. What I ended up doing is it's got screws at the bottom of this that screwed into the bottom of the pallet to keep the top on. I ended up taking the screws out and then very carefully, I figured this was a better option than trying to bust up all the plywood. In case I had to send it back for any reason, I didn't want to mess up the crate. So I ended up using a Sawzall with a very short blade. You have to be very careful when you do this that you don't use a long blade, but I ended up slicing right down the edge of the plywood and just cutting the nails instead of trying to pull them out. And then that way allowed me to slide the crate straight off the side of the pallet. That worked very nicely, like I said, for just being me. If I'd had help, I could have lifted it up over the top. In addition to doing a review of the planer, I'm also going to include with this Jet's universal base. I bought this with the machine, that way I had something to move the planer around in my shop with. It's their 1,200 pound capacity universal base. I believe Jet makes two of these, one for their smaller machines and one for their bigger ones. This is the larger size universal base. So initially when I pulled the top of the crate off, my thoughts were this is a big machine, bigger than I thought it was going to be. It just feels bigger in person than in all the photos I had seen online, which I actually really like. It gives me a good feel about the quality of the machine. Very heavy duty cast iron pieces. One thing I was a little concerned about when I was purchasing the machine, thinking about how I'm going to get the machine onto the universal base, was I know it had these lifting rods, but what I figured was that it would foul the cast iron table when I tried to lift it with straps. What I didn't know is these lifting rods actually slide out a certain amount. That way you can get straps underneath of the lifting rods and get them up around the cast iron table. You have to have the bed extensions, the cast iron bed extensions, taken off of the machine to do this, but they come disassembled already. Here are the parts that came with the planer. These two packages here are the cast iron tables, and then in the third box that you receive with the machine is the shroud and some of the tools and miscellaneous bolts that you need to assemble the machine. So my initial thoughts on this universal base here are actually very, very high. There's only 8 parts. It actually only comes in 5 bags. You get the 4 corner pieces with the 4 wheels, and then you get a bag with these 4 metal rails. That's it. The rails are very easily slid in and out. You have these little pins that pull out, and you can adjust the rail to slide in and out at different lengths here. So you've got 4 or 5 different settings to adjust it. Once I get the planer up and the pallet out from underneath of it, I'm going to roll in the base and adjust the setting of the universal base to get it set up right for the size of the planer, and then we'll lock it in. So what I did to get the pallet out from under the machine and get the universal base underneath of it, I actually used a couple sawhorses here on either side and put a couple beams across the top of it, and then I had a couple of these big heavy-duty straps that you use for on trailers or various things, and I pulled the lifting bars out, and then I was able to jack it up just a little bit to get the box or the pallet out from underneath of it. Note on that, there's a couple little blocks that Jet actually tacks to either side of the machine just to keep it on the pallet. I had to pry those out in order to slide the pallet out from underneath the planer. I did all this because I don't have a forklift or any other machine to kind of get the planer up in the air so that I can move this. So this was my means and methods of doing that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I recommend doing it this way, but it seems to be working for me. So in using the universal base, the setting you want to put this on is depth-wise, you want it to be as narrow as you can get the machine. So it's going to be on the last click there. It's a little hard to see. I'll do it over on this side so you can see this. So the pin is here. It's the last hole. There's 6 holes in each rail. And you want it on the closest one. On the width-wise, you want to actually get it on the 4th hole from the end on either side. And that's the right setting for the planer. Jet uses this mobile base for other parts of their machine or other machines of theirs, and so that's why you have various settings on this. So I've got it down on the universal base now. I've got my straps off. I will warn, if you are going to do it this way, take some extreme precaution. This is a very big machine. It's very heavy. You do not want to injure yourself or damage the machine when doing this. I would recommend that make sure that if you're using straps like this that you have enough strap wound up inside of the device. That way you have enough tension, because when you get to the bottom of those, the rope can tend to release because it doesn't have enough hoop tension around the bundle of strap in there. So make sure you have plenty of strap ratcheted up into it, and then when you lower it down, you'll have enough there. I would also recommend that you only release it like 1 click at a time, and keep it nice and even between each side, because it does tend to want to slip off of the hooks, off of the lifting bars on either side if you get it on level. So make sure that you keep it very, very level. I probably don't recommend doing it this way. It worked for me, but I'm definitely not going to put my stamp of approval on doing it this way. It was just what I had in the shop. If you have a machine or lifting rig of some sort to do this, that is definitely the preferable option. So I've got the hand wheel, the tabletop extensions, and the power box attached to the planer. To get the power box attached, it comes just kind of sitting inside this compartment down here below in a box. There's 2 flathead set screws here that you take out, and then you take the box out of the box, you put it up there and insert the screws and just tighten it down, and it holds it pretty steady. It's a pretty good connection. I'm pretty happy with the rigidity of it. The hand wheel, you attach, there's a nut and washer that are pre-attached. There's some tape to keep it on there in the crate. You take those off, you insert the hand wheel. It's got a key in it to hold the hand wheel attached to the shaft. You slide the hand wheel on, and then you put the washer and the nut back on there. And then for the handle, it's got a little bit of a square head attachment right here, and you can put a wrench in there and tighten it down, and then it's got a spinning portion of the handle here. So overall, it attaches pretty simply. The tabletops are pretty heavy. They're a little difficult to get on by yourself. The trick here is getting in a position where you can hold the tabletop. I actually held it vertically up and got 1 hole aligned, and then insert the screw and hand tightened it on and got it at least pretty snug up into there. And then I rotated, the table was down in this position, I rotated the table up and attached the 2nd screw and then the 3rd screw, and got those all hand tight up to where the tabletop was about level on the top. And then I inserted the 3 set screws that I'm going to then level the table with here in a few minutes. The tabletops come coated in a protective layer. I think it's called Cosmoline. It's a very thick grease. It's very sticky. It gets all over your hands when you're assembling the table. See it on here, coated on here. It's all over the parts. To remove it, we're going to use WD-40 and wipe it down. I believe there's some inside the cutter head as well. that you can see. I haven't put the shroud on yet. I'm going to clean the tabletop and the cutter head. I'm going to level the tabletop, and then I'm going to put the shroud, the dust collecting shroud, onto the back of the planer. So I finished with the machine setup. One thing I forgot to mention was on the plug, machine comes with no plug included. It comes with 3 hardwired little connectors that have like screw holes. It's meant so that if you want to hardwire the machine into something, you can do that. Or you can snip those off and you can wire it to your own plug. So I have a single phase machine. I think they make a 3-phase machine also. The single phase comes with 3 wires. There's a green, a black, and a white. The green is your ground plug, and you can go buy a standard 220, 240, 250 volt connector. This one is a 250 30 amp. The machine pulls 30 amps at max load, and so you need to make sure that you have a plug that can handle that, as well as a breaker that can handle 30 amps and whatever cabling you're using. In this case, I got this plug here. This is the one that I have for all of my standard 220 volt machines, and I use this to plug into an extension cord, which I then run into a wall outlet. Pretty simple. You just got to make sure that you get the green ground plug and the right connector. I believe on this one it is this one with the little prong on it. Inside of it, almost all of these will have a green screw so that you'll know which one's which. And they'll have instructions with it on how to connect the connector. But pretty simple, pretty easy to do. I believe if you have a 3-phase machine, you'll actually have 4 connectors. So just keep note that you do have to get a connector for this machine, and you do have to hook it up for whatever style of plug that you're going to be using. So in total, it took me about 6 hours to get the machine totally set up, getting the tables mounted, getting them level, getting the power box attached, screwing on the dust collection chute on the back side, getting the mobile base set up, and getting the machine all set up. It was a little longer than I expected it to take. Probably the most difficult part is getting the tabletops level with the surface of the bed that's attached to the 4 posts. And my comments there, to me, this was not a great design by Jet, and really I think this is true for all of these 4-post machines. I think Powermatic has the same type of setup. Grizzly also uses this setup, and I believe Laguna also uses this setup. The difficult part is that the tabletops weigh 40, 50 pounds each, and getting that leveled up, if you're doing this by yourself, and getting the 3 screws that are in it, and then the set screws which level the top, is pretty challenging. The difficult part is not actually getting the tabletop level this direction. It's actually leveling up the 2 surfaces, the mating surfaces of the tabletop. To me, what should have been done is that there be set screws, vertical set screws underneath 3 of those that you could adjust slowly to adjust the tabletop flatness on the top, and then have the set screws that they provided already to level it this way. So just note, I thought that was a pretty not great design. Like I said, it took me quite a bit of time to get those level, and I'm not even completely happy with this. Luckily we're dealing with wood. We're not dealing with heavy metal machinery parts. They got to be like very precision, but you still want this to be pretty close to pretty dang perfect, and so I had difficulty with that. The other part that was difficult was just getting the protective coating off of the helical head. My guess is with a straight blade you'd have quite a bit easier of a time getting it off, but getting in between all of the little individual blades and getting degreaser on there to then wipe it off was pretty challenging, and also took me quite a bit of time. To change the speed of the planer, it's very easy. With the machine on, you simply come over to this lever on the side, and if you look here at the diagram, it's 20 feet per minute on the B setting, and it's 16 feet per minute on the D setting. Currently I have it on the D setting, so all you do is push it in and you feel it engage, and it's now on the B setting at 20 feet per minute. It would disengage it, you simply just pull it out with the machine running. So I've run a few pieces of wood through the machine just to see how it performs, kind of get some of the tuning set up on it. I've noted a few things. I'll run a couple pieces here for you to see some of the things that I've noticed when running this machine. This is, I believe, Doug fir. It's got a little bit of some curly grain attributes to it. It's got a knot back here on one side, so you should be able to get a pretty good sense of how well it cuts looking at this piece of wood. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the machine. The machine is very quiet when on. I was impressed with the noise level of it. It's actually very quiet when cutting. That's one of the primary features of the helical bed. So you can see there's some markings in the wood after being run through the planer. I believe this is actually from not having a dust collector, and that some chips are getting stuck to the outfeed roller and marring a little bit of the wood up. I haven't yet confirmed that, but that's my suspicion about why I'm getting marks in my wood like that. So in taking a very light pass through the planer, you notice I turned about 1/8 of a turn. You notice that I get little indentions in the wood. This is from the infeed roller, and if you don't take enough of a cut, you see the markings of that, and they don't get cut out as they go through the blade and then through the outfeed roller. So a few other notes on the planer that I've noticed in using it here for just a day or so. One, I was very surprised at the height of the planer. I thought the planer would be at least a couple inches taller. It's pretty good when you got the tabletop up doing, 1 inch, 2 inch material. It's not too low. But when you really get it down there, when you're doing really deep cuts, and I'll take it down here for you to see, the tabletop is actually about at the height of my knees. Now, I'm a decently tall person. I'm about 6'1" in height, but I was pretty surprised at the height of the machine. I feel it's a little short, particularly when you're at the depth of larger material. So that's one thing I've noticed. I don't think it's a big deal breaker. To me, it doesn't make a huge difference. I think if you had a taller rolling or mobile base, it would bring it up a couple inches. Say if you built your own, that would help you a little bit in height, but that's just one thing I've noticed is the height of the machine. Overall, the machine seems to have plenty of power. I've run some heavier stock through it, hard stock, oak, and hard maple. I've run wider stuff through it where I'm engaging most of the blade, and just had No issues with power. It's got plenty of power. Very pleased with the power output of the machine. So the primary reason I wanted to do this video is I've scoured YouTube and different sources for videos on the machine and seeing how it performs and what the wood looks like after you use it, and potentially what the setup is and if it's difficult. And in all my search, I haven't been able to find much of anything for Jet products or Powermatic products for that matter. There's a few out there for Grizzly products, and so this video is going to be something where I hope other people can watch it and get a feel for what Jet products are like in the assembly and the setup and in some of the initial results.